You think you know what's happening in media right now, but there's a seismic shift occurring that nobody's talking about. SiriusXM just pulled the plug on Howard Stern's empire, and it's not because of budget cuts. It's a $100 million empire. His collapse represents something much bigger than one washed-up shock jock losing his paycheck. We're witnessing the complete implosion of woke media, and Stern's spectacular fall from 20 million listeners to less than 150,000 is the proverbial canary in the coal mine. This isn't just about Howard Stern getting canned. This is about the death of an entire cultural movement that soaked the American taxpayer and trashed every ounce of decency on its way out. Stern was just the poster child of the radical progressive circus. Let's get into it. Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Look, if you like our videos already and you haven't done so, you should become a subscriber to the channel. You can hit that notification bell and smack the like button because it helps us get our message out to more people. Also, tomorrow night, Friday nights at 6 o'clock Eastern, we do a live stream. That's where we read some interesting stories of the week. We tweak them with a bit of humor, a dash of sarcasm, and a whole lot of conservative common sense. Join us. You'll have a good time. You know what's fascinating? While everyone's obsessing over the latest political theater, something genuinely significant has been unfolding in media land that most people completely missed. Remember Stephen Colbert getting shown the door? Well, Howard Stern is about to join him in the unemployment line. And frankly, it couldn't happen to a more deserving guy. This is the same Howard Stern who spent 20 years flooding the airways with what critics rightfully called rabid left-wing wokeness. And now, SiriusXM is preparing to yank the cord on his $100 million contract. Let that sink in for a moment. That's significant. We're not talking about some minor budget adjustment here. This is a complete collapse of what used to be a radio empire. But here's where it gets really interesting. The reason Stern is finally getting his walking papers might actually restore your faith in corporate America, at least a little bit. This is the exact same person who built his entire career on what many Americans saw as systematically corrupting our culture. It went on for decades. Nobody stopped him. Nobody held him accountable. They were fearful of him because of what he would say on the air. But now it appears the chickens have finally come home to roost, and they're bringing friends. So what exactly happened here? Howard Stern, the guy who critics accurately say spent decades dragging broadcast standards straight into the gutter, is finally being shown the door. And it all comes down to two beautifully simple things: his insufferable politics and his cratering ratings. That's literally the entire story right there. Word from inside SiriusXM is that executives are planning to make Stern an offer they're absolutely certain he'll reject. It's corporate speak for, we want you gone, get the hell out. But we're too polite to say it directly. By all credible accounts, his show simply doesn't justify the astronomical cost anymore. But here's the part that really tells the whole story, and you're going to love this. Reports suggest his audience has crashed from 20 million listeners down to under 150,000. I think he's at 125,000. That is a complete and total collapse of biblical proportion. What's really happening behind those corporate closed doors? And why should this matter to people who still believe in traditional values like faith, family, and freedom? Well, Stern's 5-year, $500 million contract expires this fall. Multiple industry sources are now saying the company is completely fed up with his chronic case of TDS. One insider apparently called it Stephen Colbert 2.0. Ouch. That's gotta hurt. Executives watched Colbert's spectacular failure in real time and decided they absolutely didn't want to repeat that expensive mistake. The financial risk just isn't worth it anymore when you're hemorrhaging audiences. But here's what makes the story even more delicious. It's not only about the bottom line, though that certainly matters because it's business. Another well-placed source mentioned that Stern's toxic political ideology was a major factor in this decision. The choice to dump him is directly connected to the current political climate and where smart companies see the wind blowing. What does that actually mean in plain English? Well, it's pretty straightforward when you strip away the corporate doublespeak. Companies are finally realizing that systematically alienating millions of Americans tends to backfire spectacularly. Who could have predicted that, right? I mean, I think Hillary could have. When she called us a basket of deplorables, that was the end of her campaign. She insulted at least half of the voter base. And here's the part the mainstream media absolutely will not touch with a 10-foot pole. Wokeness is a sinking ship taking on water fast, while patriotism and America First principles are rising to take its rightful place. Not just here, around the world. Let's revisit what Stern actually said during a recent campaign season, because his own words tell you everything that you need to know about his mindset. He said, and I quote, "I hate the people who vote for Trump. I think they're stupid. I have no respect for them at all." That quote pretty much sums up everything you need to understand about Howard Stern's worldview and why he's now unemployable. It's the exact same arrogant attitude that completely destroyed Stephen Colbert's career. Oh, and all the others. I mean, it was around the time of COVID that the late night talk shows became unfunny. They became political, but they didn't know how to become political. So they got their talking points from a bunch of staffers from the White House. I mean, think about that. People originally tuned into Howard Stern because he was genuinely funny. I used to listen to him every day. He was outrageously, consistently funny. The only person doing what he was doing with that level of skill. And then he went woke and turned left. And just like that, late night talk show hosts who made the same fatal mistake, Howard was no longer funny. He became a crusty, bitter old liberal, no different than his old mentor, David Letterman, who also used to be funny. Howard Stern used to at least pretend he was some kind of rebel, outsider, fighting the system. He carefully cultivated this whole anti-establishment persona that people actually bought into. But the act officially ended around 2020. He didn't grow or develop as a human being. He just completely sold out in the most transparent way possible. He transformed into an enthusiastic cheerleader for the very same establishment he used to mock relentlessly and brilliantly. And this wasn't some gradual shift that happened over years either. He became the poster child for everything he once opposed with genuine conviction. He actually went so far as to suggest that unvaccinated people should be denied hospital care during COVID. His exact words, "Let them die." He actually said that on his show. This isn't about pushing boundaries for entertainment anymore. This is about how Howard Stern morphed into everything he used to rail against with righteous fury. He blamed unvaccinated people for prolonging the pandemic, just like the Biden administration. Before that moment, I had thought that even though Stern was clearly a clown, I thought he was at least intelligent. He complained that he had to stay indoors for 2 years and never leave his home because of unvaccinated people. What? And it apparently never dawned on him that if vaccines actually work and you got vaccinated, then how exactly are unvaccinated people going to give you COVID? The logic doesn't add up, but logic was never his strong suit. He was a clown. For 4 decades, Stern built his considerable fortune by systematically breaking social taboos. He did it brilliantly. He earned the title the king of all media, and honestly, nobody could argue with that assessment at that time. But these days, he's not shocking anybody. He's not pushing any envelopes or breaking new ground. He's just predictable, boring, and dull. He's become everything he used to make fun of. Keep this in mind. This is the same guy who racked up $2.5 million in FCC fines between 1990 and 2004. It's like the largest penalty for radio in history. Those fines were specifically for, quote, sexually lewd and degrading content that pushed every possible boundary. I believe his wife left him because of that. Now he thinks he's qualified to lecture the rest of us about moral standards. Really? That takes some serious audacity. This is textbook narcissism in action, guys. Someone who built this entire brand on crude offensive content now believes he's somehow the moral compass for the entire country. What a joke. Howard Stern is walking around acting like he's America's guidance counselor, and it's almost comical to watch. The problem is he stopped being interesting, unpredictable, or entertaining. He turned into just another mouthpiece repeating Democratic talking points and desperately sucking up the Hollywood celebrities for approval. I remember waking up one morning. I used to live in Philadelphia, and I woke up to the radio, and it said, "Philadelphia, you're in for your worst nightmare. This is the Howard Stern Show." And I thought, who's that? Because I had never heard of him, right? I started listening to him every single day for years. I stopped when he started going left wing. Over the years, the king of all media didn't really create anything. He was nothing more than a professional destroyer. He helped create the toxic cultural environment that's been systematically undermining American families and traditional values for decades. The Democratic Party has embraced that exact same destructive mentality, and it's not accidental. They found common ground in their shared hatred for normal America. Both reject America's historical traditions that made us great. Why Trump said, "Make America great again." They both attack conventional gender roles and sexual ethics. Both seem absolutely determined to destroy the cultural inheritance that previous generations sacrificed to leave us. But here's what they really didn't anticipate, and it's a good thing to watch. That whole destructive era is finally coming to an end. November 5th represented a genuine turning point in American history. The American people made their choice crystal clear, and that decision actually mattered for all of us. And now we're seeing the consequences play out in real time. And for once, it's the left that's paying those consequences instead of regular Americans. The anti-Trump media establishment is finding itself increasingly cornered with nowhere to run, nowhere to hide. Colbert got the axe. Stern is getting dropped. Companies are finally understanding what millions of regular Americans figured out a long time ago. Systematically alienating conservatives isn't just morally wrong. It's corporate seppuku with a smile. The woke media landscape is crumbling right before our eyes. And Howard Stern is just the latest casualty in a war that they started, but they don't know how to end. Here's the bright side in all of this that'll give you genuine hope. This represents the beginning of a massive cultural correction that's been decades in the making. When companies start dropping woke content creators because they're financial liabilities, that tells you everything you need to know about where America is heading. We're witnessing the return of common sense, traditional values, and actual entertainment that doesn't lecture you about politics every 5 minutes. The future belongs to creators who respect their audiences instead of despising them. And that's exactly the America we're building together. All right, thank you for watching. I'll see you in the next.